You've read all the books, you've practiced all the techniques that you've seen in videos and podcasts, but have you looked into symbols? Have you looked at how symbols can drastically open up your consciousness and allow you to be guided by something greater than the books or the podcasts or the videos? How you can actually dial into a higher version of yourself without there being any need to interpret, to change, to extract from these other sources of knowledge and wisdom from other people in a way that truly 100% aligns with who you are. Symbols is the way by which you can actually learn by analyzing a symbol, by coming into your own understanding as what does that symbol mean to you and how it can actually guide you toward you being your true self, you being your desired future self, right? So what I want to do with you is I want to share with you the breakdown of a very infamous symbol called the flower of life. This symbol has been, to me, one of the most impactful, most powerful symbols that has helped me throughout my life to truly expand my consciousness and really come into understanding who I am and what is possible for me. So today we're going to break down this symbol, the flower of life, and we're going to talk about how it actually helps and supports you when you really understand what these symbols mean. Because a lot of times people know the symbols, they can kind of give you a vague understanding of what the symbol is, like, okay, the flower of life is a sacred geometry symbol that can help you to open up and expand your consciousness. Okay, what does that mean though, right? So let's get into it from a standpoint of recognizing that this symbol helps you to transcend the current idea of self into the infinite possibilities as to where you can go throughout your life. This is something that has dawned on me very recently, and I'm sharing it with you because I want you to understand exactly how this symbol will, in fact, shift your life and how it represents the fact that your life is already shifting. Okay, it explains to you the transformation of you. All right. So first thing is first, what is this symbol? Let's get into it. So this is the flower of life. Okay. You've seen this symbol many times. It is on the cover of my book, The Future Self Frequency. Okay. But when we look at this symbol, we only see a circle. We see an arrangement of circles. We see that it is symmetrical, right? It is an amazing and beautiful design. It is aesthetically pleasing, and it just simply makes sense, right? It's not chaotic. It's very organized. It is profoundly simple. It is just simply a series of circles arranged in a certain way that looks, geometrical in shape, in size. Everything is balanced. Everything is even. But there's more to it when we think about it. When I started to come across the secrets of the flower of life, it was because I started to practice drawing this symbol. Okay. When I started practicing how to draw this symbol, it revealed some concepts to me that I wasn't quite ready to articulate, but understood. So when you think about this symbol, right, it is a series of circles. Okay. And you can see this in the cover of my book. Okay. These circles essentially overlap. Okay. One overlaps the other, and it is very even. So it overlaps right in the middle of the next symbol. Then you have some circles that actually cross sect. Okay. So essentially you get the point. But what does this mean, right? That's really what the point is. What does this mean? When we think about the universe, I'm going to put this up here for a second. The universe is vast. The universe is infinite, right? Some people would say the universe is full of dark matter, where it's just nothing but blackness. And then these random planets and stars and suns exist, gases, things of that nature. That's the physical expression of the universe. But when we think about the dark matter, the part of that which seems like nothing, that nothingness is this representation of this board. When you look at this board, you see nothing. But in actuality, nothing is something. That is another conversation to be had. The conversation of nothingness being something. right? In order for you to have something, you have to compare it to something else, which is nothing, which makes it a thing. Nothingness essentially is the foundation of something. So it is basically the potentiality of something. So as you think about the entire universe as this board, the entire universe ultimately is consciousness, right? There is an intellect that exists here. This is how we can study, right? We use things like science to come to a clearer understanding as to how and why things work, because there is intelligence behind it. We are also intelligent. That's why we can understand it or seek to understand it. Why? Because we are expressions of that intelligence, right? We often call that intelligence God, and we often call our expression of that intelligence consciousness. This is why I say oftentimes that our consciousness is an individualized expression of God. So all of this you can say is God, right? Because it's all the universe. Now, how do you differentiate God from self? Well, you are a circle, okay? The circle is an expression of you. When I say you, I am including the physical body which your consciousness is capsulated within. You are the circle. Your body is essentially this round part, right? The black part that I just drew on here. It's an expression, right? It is a metaphor, it is a idea of understanding how this symbol relates to you, okay? Now, just like all of this in the whiteboard, right? In reality, we're talking about dark matter, the entire universe that seems like it's more nothing than something, but actually is everything. This is everythingness, consciousness, God. The center of you is consciousness, God. That is who you are, okay? You are just simply housed in this physical body to have a particular human experience. You see? Now, sometimes we identify with this particular body. We feel like we are this body. We have to protect this body, which there is truth to that, right? And we do that by way of the ego, okay? The ego is the thing that helps us to tether our physical body, our consciousness within the physical body to this physical world, all right? It is like an anchor, right? Let's see if I can draw an anchor. It's like an anchor, okay? And when you understand that this anchor here is what connects you to Earth, you see that, okay, this is why you have an ego. It connects you to this physical plane of Earth, which essentially you have to differentiate myself from yourself, right? Your physical safety, right, from physical harm, okay? And that's what this whole thing is about. When we talk about the ego, it also pertains to mental, it also pertains to emotional harm, all those things. But essentially, you are having a particular experience called you. I'm having a particular experience called me, okay, called Peter. So now the thing is, when it comes to this physical earth, we think in terms of time, right? And we think in terms of a linear concept of time. Now, if I were to cut this circle and I were to stretch it out, it would look like this, right? And this is often how we think of time, right? Time is going this way. It doesn't go any other direction. That's what it is. And because we haven't learned to differentiate the ego from the true self, we think that this is all there is, that you are only functioning in this linear concept of time, right? Linear concept of time. But you are beyond that. You are more than that. You are, in fact, okay, not just this physical expression of the body, right, of ego. You are more what's on the inside, okay? You are more of this than you are of this, okay? So what I want you to understand is that you are beyond your physical body. Do not think that you are just a physical body. Do not think that your physical body is all of who you are, that your emotions, okay, are who you are, that your thoughts are who you are, even your actions are not who you are. Okay. Those are just expressions. Those are just things by which, your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, your unconscious mind, and your ego are simply just spitting out, doing out of programming, out of belief systems that may or may not align with you, right? But ultimately, what's going on in here is consciousness is having an experience. That's the goal, to have an experience. Now, consciousness has a goal and objective to have a particular experience. That's what you need to recognize, is that you are meant to have a particular experience. And so we use things like your conscious mind to observe and analyze what's going on, right? To say, you know what my consciousness is telling me is that this is not the experience that I'm supposed to be having. And so your conscious mind analyzes and looks around and says, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. This isn't what I want. This isn't what I desire. And so at that point, your conscious mind has to lead in changing the subconscious, unconscious programming. It has to address and learn how to manage the ego. Okay? When you learn how to manage the ego, then you come into a state of enlightenment, so to speak, where you recognize who you are, which is consciousness. And consciousness is the witness or the observer. Okay. Now, let's get back to this concept of time. Now, as we think about time, we think in terms of you only existing on a particular trajectory that you cannot control it. Okay. Now, but you, in fact, when we look at this flower of life, and I want you to keep in mind that this symbol, the flower of life, is not just a two-dimensional symbol, okay, where it goes up, down, side to side. It actually goes back and forward as well. Also, this circle of life, a flower of life, is not just captured within this larger circle, okay? The largest circle is just a means by which it is in a framework that people can actually share it. But it actually, this larger circle is really not there. It really doesn't exist. This flower of life is infinite and continues to expand and continues to grow, right? Just like you in consciousness continues to expand and grow, just like the universe continues to expand and grow. You are the universe, okay? So you act and are the same, right? So now what I want you to understand is that this symbol is constantly growing and expanding, just like you are as well. Whether you believe it or not, you are constantly expanding. The thing is, where you know it and you're aware of it and you're mindful of it and you're intentionally practicing it, it's way better than if you're resistant against it. All right. So now when we think about ourselves, we think in terms of the self being stuck, right? When you identify and I ask you who you are, most of us will say, I am this person who does that and thinks that and feels that. And oftentimes we feel locked into that, like we have no real control over it, right? We know that we can do something different, but many of us don't really practice it or identify with something greater than those things, right? The subconscious, the conscious mind, the ego, your feelings, your emotions, your actions. We identify with those things so much that we are stuck in that paradigm called self. We're stuck in that idea of self. Okay. Now, self in itself is nothing wrong, but it is identifying, right? Identifying with self is what creates the problem because it is not our true nature. When we recognize that we are experiencing a version of self and that we can shift from any version that we desire to any version that we desire, then you recognize consciousness. There is no boundaries. There's no limitations. There is only the expansion. There is only the experience. Okay. The experience you desire to have. So back to time. When we go in thinking and recognizing ourselves, right? Yourself, currently at this very moment. And then we get into measuring whether this self is happy. Is this self in alignment with who you are, right? Is this self in alignment with consciousness, right? Is it in alignment with consciousness? Your consciousness is your ultimate guide, is telling you what to do, where to go, because that is the God within you. That is your divine self leading you toward a particular experience that God wishes to have. You see? So consciousness is truly who you are, that awareness of self. So when you are going through life, you are not stuck at oneself. You are not stuck as the self at this very moment. You are shifting, just like we demonstrated, right, with the flower of life. You are shifting from one version of self to another. Okay? This flower of life, all of these circles are you. All of these circles are your reality. All of these circles are your world. Okay? When I first started understanding and I started really seeing and getting the wisdom behind this symbol, what I first related it to, and it still pertains, like this single symbol doesn't just mean one thing. Okay? This is just one example of what you understand from really dissecting these symbols. But when I first looked at these symbols, I saw these circles as individual people. I saw one circle as me. I saw one circle as you. I see one circle as my dog. I see one other circle as my child. My other child is the other circle. I saw the circles as individuals. And that is still true, right? In time, in this reality, in this world, though we create our individual realities, right? Our individual universes, which is essentially, right? A circle, right? This is my reality. This is your reality. This is your father's reality. It's your mother's reality, whomever. They still exist, right? Within a framework of a shared reality. Okay. I'm going a little bit off direction, but I just wanted to show you how this symbol can mean more than one thing. So when you think about each circle, you can look at each circle as an individual person. And when you think about the framework of the greater circle, right, you can look at that as the shared universe that we all share together, the commonalities, the things we often call facts, right? The things we often call, yes, gravity. Up is up, down is down, right, left is left, right is right. Okay. Those things. But ultimately, how we live within that grander universe is different for each of us. Okay. And we function differently. So ultimately, this symbol means many things, but we're going to only talk about it today in terms of you and self. So you are constantly shifting. You're constantly changing. You are never the same. Even if you sit and do absolutely nothing, you're still going to shift and be a different person. Your cells are changing. Your consciousness is changing. Your mind is changing. your body is changing. Okay. Even when we think of it on a more macro scale, we think about how the body transforms, the body changes entirely every 7 years. So every 7 years, all of the cells in your body are replaced with newer cells. This is why it's very important to be mindful about what you eat, what you do, how you think, how you feel, because it will determine the kind of body that you have 7 years from now. You see, if you remain in a space where you are eating the healthiest, you're being active, you're being mindful about your emotions and your space and your environment and the people you're around, in 7 years, you'll have a whole completely, shell, right? A whole completely new vessel or vehicle to move through life, AKA the body. So, but it's not just the 7 years. This is literally moment to moment as well. So the second just now before the last second, you were changed. You were a different person. Okay. You may not sense it. You may feel like you're the same, but you're not. This is another thing, is that you feel that way because each version of you carries with it a previous version. You see what I'm saying? So you see how these circles overlap one another? When you shift from here to here, you are carrying a little bit of this past self. Okay? When you shift from here to here, you're carrying a little bit of that past self. Okay? But then over time, these past selves and the remnants of that old past self kind of fade away. You remember them. Okay? You understand, okay, yeah, that person who I used to be, I'm not that person now. It becomes way more clear and obvious. But ultimately, that's basically how this works. The issue is many of us, because we carry remnants of our old self, we actually identify with this part. We identify with that old self. This is why it's important not to identify with self, to keep moving forward toward an experience. Understand you are consciousness. You are really not self. Okay. You are consciousness. Self is just an expression of consciousness, of the conscious mind, subconscious mind, etc. Most of us, though, we think that we move through time this way, okay? Just like I demonstrated when I drew out these circles. But in fact, this is what we have available to us. You see how this circle or this flower of life has, I should grab another one to use to be, so this is the center one, right? So when we think about this center flower of life circle, say, think of yourself in the middle, okay? I wonder if, yeah, let's keep moving forward. So look at yourself as the circle in the middle here. When you look at yourself at the circle in the middle and you see all these other circles expanding out, so I'm going to attempt to draw this out. Don't beat me up if my circle is terrible here. If my attempt at drawing the flower of life is terrible here. But you see how the circles begin to spread out, okay? This is essentially an expression of the infinite directions and possibilities that you can go in life. You're not constrained to this idea of a straight line. Just because you did something doesn't mean that you have to keep moving forward in the results of that thing or the consequences or the direction of that thing, right? If you say, you know what, I want to go to school to be a mechanic. If you go to school, you enroll in school, you start school, doesn't mean you have to keep going. If you know that doesn't resonate with who you truly are. If you have to say, well, you know what, I really don't like this. I really don't enjoy electronics. I really don't understand it or care about it. It doesn't excite me at all. Or even if it's not the amount of money that I wish to make anyway, then you have to, and you should, change trajectories, change courses, right? And so you can simply just shift, change. You don't have to go one direction. You can go this direction and then say, you know what, I'm going to go this direction. I'm going to go this direction. Maybe I'm going to go back a little bit, but this direction. This direction. Okay? You don't have to go straight. The thing is, a straight line is relative. It's almost like investing in stocks, right? Where the stock market always goes up. But many people focus on these dips. So the stock market looks like, this, and then people focus on the dip and say, oh, it went down. But it goes back up and it goes a little bit higher than it was before, down, higher than it was before, down, higher than it was before, right? So when it comes to you and your spirituality, your fulfillment, your happiness, your joy, do not get caught up in the dips. Sometimes you're going to have a route that you feel doesn't resonate with you, and then you're going to have to shift, okay, and go a different direction. Look at this and look at that, okay? That essentially is what the flower of life is telling you. This is only pertaining to a lifetime, one particular life, right? But really what I'm talking to you about is the understanding that these are also timelines, okay? These are timelines. These are possibilities. You can go infinite directions, okay? Infinite expressions. You're not stuck in one direction. So you must let go of this idea that this self, right, that you are currently expressing is the self that you are locked into. You're not locked into this version of self. You can always change this version of self by changing the trajectory. How do you do that? You recognize that since all of these circles represent a trajectory of self and how your life can look through various decisions, various ways of moving, various ways of being, thinking, acting, right? These circles represent how you are thinking, acting, and where it's going, where it's taking you. You see? So you are currently focusing on, say you're focusing on eating better, right? And this is, say, 5 days. You ate 5 days. You ate great for 5 days. Here, you may have slipped up. You went to a Chick-fil-A or something like that. Now, usually what people do is they give up right here. And then they go back to a life that doesn't align with who they know themselves to be because they don't want to be that. This is the thing. The thing by which you want to be, desire to be, that's what you're supposed to be. That's where and what you're supposed to be doing and living. This is how you know you're going in the right direction or not. Now, when it comes to this example, there is no direction in itself that's right or wrong. What determines what's right or wrong is if it aligns with you. So, but what you still can do, again, like I said, this goes infinitely. There's no like set rules and directions, right? You're going good. You're doing this and then you make a mistake and then you start going this route. This route is one of just kind of going back into an old pattern. You can simply change course and go back to the trajectory of the versions of self you want to be when it comes to eating better. That only relates to eating better. But there are also versions of you where you are doing everything and have everything. So there are versions of you, right, that has great health, wealth, okay, love, happiness. You just have to understand that whatever it is that you ultimately see for yourself, you have to understand that that is the version of you that you're meant to experience. So there is a balance there that's happening between what is destined for you and what it is that you can choose to experience. Some people say, well, if you're destined to have it, then it's not free choice, right? You don't have power over your ability to change it or make a decision. It's both here, okay? Because you can simply not choose all these things. Some people believe that, and it comes down to a belief system. Some people believe in order to have health, they must sacrifice in order to have wealth, they must sacrifice their health. Some people believe in order to have wealth, they must sacrifice love. Okay. That's a belief system. That belief system creates the reality by which you exist in and create. Some people think that wealth will create happiness for them. In few occasions, I've heard people actually say that's true. And I think that for the most part, it's not, because they are two different things, right? Now, truth be told, I believe and I know that you can decide to be happy no matter what. And you see, that's the thing, is you don't have to express or live out the version of you that has it all in order to be happy, right? So you're not, supposed to live this version of you, right? This one particular version of you that is perfect and has it all. In a way that means that if you're not living that, then you shouldn't be happy. I don't want you to believe that. That's not really what this is about. This is about essentially just saying that you can break down the limitations of thinking that in order for you to have this, you must give up that. When in fact, there is a version of you that has that, and that. You see? So let go of this idea that you got to pick one or the other. It is and or. It is and plus and more. Okay. Now, in order for you to really take this path of having it all, being the version that has it all, you must truly listen to the desires that you have. You must truly listen and pay attention to your desires, right? Dreams, ideas, even the things you wonder about, right? Your curiosities, the things that you think about, the things that you find very interesting, right? So say if you find salsa dancing interesting and you're like, hey, I want to take a class one day. Of course, there's been people who went and took a salsa dance class just once and it changed their whole entire life, right? They loved it simply because they simply decided to take the chance on something different, something new. They were curious. They followed that curiosity and then opened them up to a whole new world of possibilities. Took salsa dancing, decided to go, travel to Spain or, Puerto Rico or what have you. And they were just like, then that took them to another space of realizing they wanted to live in a whole new country, experience and stay within a whole new different culture than the one that they know. Right. So that's just how it works. One thing leads you to another. And so with this symbol, what I want you to understand is, as it relates to you on this trajectory of becoming the best version of yourself, what often people say is really about you becoming the future version of yourself, the desired future version of yourself, not a version of yourself that has settled and decided that, you know what, this is what life is. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to, just let things happen rather than taking charge of what happens and taking ownership of what happens. Make sure that you recognize that the version of self that you are now is not locked in, right? It's not what you have to experience. It's not what you must live by, okay? You are the creator. Now, sometimes people will take this the wrong way. Some people think that I'm saying you are the God. No, you are an individualized expression of God. You are the circle, okay? You are within that circle divine. Your divinity is what gives you the power to create any reality, any version of yourself that you wish to create and express yourself as. This is the beauty of the symbol, the flower of life. It is a symbol that helps you to break down quantum physics, how to quantum jump from one version of yourself to another version of yourself, how to not only listen in terms of, right, this linear concept of time, meaning that we only go from past, present, future, right? But we in fact can listen from the future. So when you, who is not, you are not a linear being. Your body is linear, but you, consciousness, is not linear. As I bring it back to this whole idea of linear time, you are an infinite being who is outside of the framework of time. When you tap into that consciousness, right, that part of you that is divine, time begins to dissolve. And instead of going in this linear concept of time, you begin to learn how to listen, right, from the future back. What is the things that you're listening to, and how are you listening to it? By way of your dreams, okay? Your aspirations, your desires. That's how you're listening. You didn't even know it. You didn't even know that your dreams, aspirations, right? Those things, your desires, those are things that are being sent to you from your future self. This is the version of you that has it all. This is the version of you that is dialed in, connected, completely, totally enlightened, and able to send you the messages from the future to their past self, which is your current present self, and actually guide you, right? Guide you through this path of life to wherever you're supposed to be going, okay? GPS signal, giving you the coordinates, giving you the directions, your lighthouse. Understand that this is how and why this symbol is so important. So when you see this symbol again, or even this basic, very basic fundamental symbol, I want you to see what it means. I want you to remember what it means. All right? It means that you are a divine being, right? Living a human experience. That's all. You are not human. You are just having and living a human experience. You are divine. Okay. So please take that. If you don't really understand, or do you have some more questions about what it is that I'm saying, or you want to really expand on it, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll definitely get into it, because I'm going to be talking about this a lot more as a result of the release of my book, The Future Self Frequency, and also the release of my Future Self Journal. Okay. I'm going to be talking about this constantly, and I want you to think about it. I want you to expand upon it, and let's have a discussion about it. Okay. So if you want the first chapter of The Future Self Frequency, the Deluxe Transformation Edition, I have the first chapter absolutely free, available at drabundant.com. Subscribe. If you already subscribed, then you sent a version of it. All right. If you didn't get it yet, leave a comment in the section below and I will somehow send it to you, send you a link to it, something like that. But you must get both of these books. All right. The book, the Deluxe Transformation Edition, and also the journal. All right. Hope this helped. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. If you like this style of video or you like me to go back to my traditional sit and talk videos, let me know. All right. Thank you so much. Peace and abundance always.